Hi, welcome to moderator training for the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland. My name is Wendy Doring. I'm one of the people who helped to develop this training, and I'm a member of the League of Greater Cleveland. Though this training program is not limited to our league, if there is someone else who would benefit from the training, you are welcome to share the information with them. The league does three different categories of forums which use moderators. The most common are candidate forums with specific rules for judicial candidates, which I will get to. Ballot issue forums, which are most often school levies or charter issues, um, and educational forums on topics of public interest, which are not related to elections. Educational forums might be on different types of charters in government, or the role of democracy, or understanding school funding. That's a big one. In all of these, the role of the moderator is the same. The moderator is a calm and impartial guide to the content and a traffic cop sometimes for the panelists. The moderator serves basically as the structure to the forum. We are somewhat invisible and yet essential to the success of the forum. There is a comprehensive toolkit for voter education forums. It's mostly on candidate issues, candidate and issue forums, but it's very complete. To find it, you can go to lwvgreatercleveland.org and go under resources, one of the drop-down boxes at the top of the website. And under resources, you will find publications. There are also updates for virtual forums. I've done a number of virtual forums during COVID, in which the candidates are all on Zoom, and I am on Zoom. The moderator is on Zoom, and questions are emailed in or presented in the chat. We found the virtual forums to be quite effective and are recorded then and posted online, which is also helpful. A good moderator. You can be a league member or an impartial journalist or some other impartial person. Cleveland Heights University Heights has used the head of a co-sponsoring organization as a moderator. And we've also used a friend of the league who is available. In a forum for local candidates, the moderator should not be from the community or election district, if possible. If you can bring someone in from the outside. If the moderator is from the district, from the community, then it's good to make that clear at the outset. It is central to the league that we are impartial, and people don't always believe you're impartial if it's your own community. And it does take a particular skill set to remain impartial when it is your own community. In a public policy forum, the moderator should have knowledge of the topics and issues. So if you're moderating for a candidate forum in another community, you may not know much about that community, although you want to know if there are any particular hot issues. You don't want to get trapped into some hot issue with unawares. But basically, candidate forums are candidate forums. But in a public policy forum, it helps that the moderator knows something about the topic, and so you can make a better judgment about the questions you're asking and understanding what the participants are saying. A good moderator has stage presence. That's quite important. To be able to walk up to the podium and express that you own the podium and you own the room. It's the way you carry yourself. It's the way you present yourself, that lets people know that you're in charge. I wear a blue suit. I have a blue business suit that I always wear and high heels. Um, and you don't need to wear a suit. You don't need to wear heels, certainly, but it's what makes me feel in charge. So if you can feel in charge wearing jeans and a t-shirt and you're fairly sure that everybody else knows that you're in charge, then wear jeans and a t-shirt. But I think it's more effective if you dress to the role. You want to have a political neutrality and a sense of fair play. I work very hard to maintain my political neutrality. I actually worry about small things like I spoke at a city council meeting on behalf of the league and had to leave before the meeting ended. And the mayor, who was a contentious figure in the city, stood up and came over and shook my hand, thanked me for coming to speak at the meeting. And I actually debated whether to shake his hand or not because I didn't want to appear to be aligned with him. But I decided if I did not shake his hand, that would be a bigger comment. And this is all filmed, so you assume that it's going to be on camera, whatever you do. Um, so I'm always aware. Um, I am always careful about being friendly to any public official, any elected official, because I don't want to then face them in a candidate forum and have some sense of, well, you were really nice to me that other day, so you're going to be extra nice to me here now in the forum. Um, I had a forum once in another community where I mildly knew one of the candidates, didn't know her well, but we did know each other. And I told her beforehand that in terms of the forum, we did not know each other, that there would be um, no favor granted there. Um, a sense of fair play, you always want to treat everybody equally. You're not going to try to get any one of the candidates. I, in fact, really stay away from gotcha questions. I don't like directed questions unless they can be fairly worded. Um, so I work very hard on neutrality and being fair to everybody. Tact in a gracious manner while being firm. Um, yeah, you can be gracious while holding the room. You don't have to be mean or ugly. Um, I was told by someone that I have the kindergarten teacher look, where you see that look and you know you did something wrong. You don't know what it is, but you know you need to sit down and and behave. And I have that look, and I see it now. I don't know what that look is, but I do see that I have a way of looking at people that makes them say, "Oh, oh, excuse me. I'll back off." It's a useful look to have in moderating forums occasionally. The ability to make quick decisions. That is very true. Things happen in forums. You draw up all the rules and you think you've got order and control, but things will happen and you need to be able to respond quickly. Um, and a reasonable sense of humor. A sense of humor goes a long way. Needs to be polite, needs to be clean, shouldn't take over the forum. But yeah, a small bit of humor is quite helpful in lessening the tension. Forums are very stressful for the candidates, and they want the job usually. Um, they are putting themselves on the line, both in running for office and in being in the forum. And a bit of humor can help to break up that tension for them. We do have a lot of forums that have been recorded and are now on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel. And it can be helpful to watch other moderators to see what they do, to get a sense of range of style, to see what works for you. You can also see what, I don't like that. I don't think that worked well. And so it's a real learning opportunity to watch other moderators. Above all, be prepared. In addition to your clean suit and shoes that are in good shape. Um, we, as a league, strongly discourage open mic forums. It's not that we won't ever do them, but in general, we won't do them. If I have been to a number of open mic forums and find them to be incredibly inefficient, time wasting. Once that person has stood in line and they get hold of that microphone, they are not giving up the microphone. They are going to tell the whole backstory to their question, and they may not even really quite get to the question. It's more of a long opinion piece that has, you can comment on this if you agree with me, kind of tone to their question. And someone will finally get to the microphone, and even though their question was asked by someone, two people earlier, because they just stood in line for that long, they're going to ask the question again just because they stood in line. So yeah, we really stay away from open mic questions. We also screen all the questions. Questions are submitted in writing, and we screen them. And we screen them so that we don't have duplications, where you might get 5 questions that are on the one topic, and they're variations, or they're different shades of the core question. And you can take some from each of them and come up with the most effective question by combining them. And some are, this is all handwritten, and so some of them are hard to figure out. Um, and some of them, yes, are rude, or we won't ask because they are spreading misinformation. There is in the toolkit a checklist of information you will need in advance of the forum. There's also a sample moderator script. Um, Review it. It's a good baseline. You'll need to edit it, of course, for your situation. You want to be sure to know who the panelists or the candidates are, how to pronounce their names. You'll want to check with the candidates, especially if you have any questions. I had a forum where 2 of the women had double last names, and I didn't know if they wanted both last names used or just one. You want to know the time allocations for the forum. So I will map out the forum beforehand, and especially if I have more than one forum for the evening. So I will note how long is allotted for the forum itself. You have an introduction, usually by the host, the head of whoever's sponsoring the forum. And so that might be 5 minutes. And then you have your own introductions as a moderator and the reading of the rules, and that might be another 5 minutes. And then you have the candidate opening statements, and if those are 2 minutes apiece, and say you have 5 candidates, that's going to be 10 minutes. And then closing statements, another 10 minutes at the end. And so you write down what time you will be getting to questions probably, and absolutely write down the time you need to end the questions and get to the closing statements. A part of the job of being a moderator is watching the clock and knowing how time is progressing on you. And you'll also want to know how and when questions will be accepted from the audience. We have actually now begun taking questions in advance by email, which is helpful. So then we have them typed instead of handwritten, and it gives us time in advance to go through them. We just had a big forum. 350 people attended in person. We received about 150 questions for that forum, half of them in advance, half of them that evening. And so having them in advance was really helpful. By the way, so when we got the questions in writing online by email, the screeners compiled them into a Word document and formatted it. And it worked much better if they formatted the page into 2 columns, so that the questions they cut out and handed to me then were half a sheet wide and deeper. Initially, I was getting the full sheet width and maybe an inch tall, and I had all these little fluttery pieces of paper that I could not get to stay in place. And it was if you are printing out questions you've received online, put them into two columns and make sure that the bottom question doesn't scroll over into the top of the next column or the top of the next page. Check your formatting on that. And then we take questions as people are walking in. We let them know that they could have an index card and a pencil or a pen, and sort of start writing down their questions. I remind them at the beginning of the question and answer period as well. And so part of my introductory comments are how we accept questions, and then I remind them again when we end the opening statements and go to the question and answer period. In your script, you'll want to include the format of the evening. You want to explain to the audience what the format will be, the timing of the segments, and how questions are to be submitted. You want to mention the League's nonpartisan policy. This is so central to League. And we work extremely hard to maintain our nonpartisan status. And part of doing that is by reminding people that that is our policy. In the script, you remind audience members to not make partisan demonstrations, no signs, no T-shirts, no reactions, by telling them that they are simply taking, well, in terms of the reactions, the booing and cheering and clapping, they are just taking time away from the candidates who we are all there to hear. There is also now a policy prohibiting the audio or videotaping of the event by anyone other than the League. So if people in the audience or start holding up their phone and taking their own video, we do not allow that. We will post the entire video on our YouTube channel, and people can go to that. Before the forum begins, yes, arrive early so you can get the layout of the room, the feel of the room, know where the bathroom is, check out your podium, make sure you have everything you need. And as soon as I get to the podium, the first thing I do is find the clock. And I have now been in two rooms where there was no clock. And I used to take my watch off and just set it on the podium. But now I have a smartwatch that's only on if I move it. And the phone, you have to push the button to make the clock come on. And so those things require you to interact. I really love having a clock. I'm extremely clock oriented. And somebody suggested one of those tiny desktop clocks, like for in your office. They have these really nice little clocks. Or if I could go back to a standard analog wristwatch, that would be nice. But you have to have something where you can see the time easily. When you arrive, welcome the candidates, help to put them at ease, because yes, they are on the line there and might be new to the forum experience. I did a forum last night, and 3 of the 6 candidates were brand new to campaigning, and so you want to help put them at ease. Check the pronunciation of their names. I have had, and I always refer to them as Mr. or Ms. I do not get into marital status. We do not do first names. We do not do professional titles. The only time you will do a first name is if you have 2 people with the same last name. So Mr. Jack Smith and Mr. Bill Smith. Otherwise, it is just last names to maintain professionalism and a lack of familiarity, a lack of friendliness. You need to maintain a standard. Be clear about the rules of the road to the candidates, including that there is no rebuttal or crosstalk. Forums do not allow rebuttal, but I will say I have allowed it a couple of times where one candidate makes an accusation on another candidate. They will make a statement that is quite accusatory. And the candidate who is accused will, of course, want to respond. And I think it is only fair to let them respond. And I let that go as long as 2 exchanges. So candidate A makes the accusation, candidate B responds, A counters, B counters, and I cut it off. That is as far as I will let it go. And it's only happened a couple of times in the number of forums that I have moderated. So it's not a lot. You might want to emphasize that each candidate will have equal time to talk. We do hold people at time limits. And so we try to keep it as fair as possible for all candidates. Yeah, candidates are candidates. They are not office holders. We do not refer to them, if they are an elected official, we do not refer to them by their elected title. Um, they are not mayor, judge, representative, etc. There's some debate about using the term doctor. Um, if doctor is not part of the role that they are running for, I'm not sure I would call them doctor because it is not pertinent to the work. And it does set, we as a society put someone who is a doctor on a somewhat higher elevated pedestal. And so I tend to, it's never actually come up in one of my forums, but my tendency would be to not use the term doctor. I, about the first names, I have had candidates where I'm going down the row asking, checking pronunciations. And I said, and Mr. Smith, and he says, Bob. And I say, Mr. Smith, and go on. Um, so they know. When you begin the forum to the public, explain the format and the time limits. Um, you're doing this for the panelists and the audience, including the guidelines for audience questions. You want everybody to know the road ahead. Before you start taking audience questions, explain the rules once again. And when you approach the end of the forum, you'll repeat the instructions for the closing statements by the candidates. Repetition is helpful to everybody. Time limits. It is absolute that we hold to the time limits. We usually have two people, the person who watches the clock or the stopwatch, um, and the person who holds up the time signs uh, with 30-second warning, 15-second warning. If it's a 2-minute segment, we'll give them a 1-minute warning. And you want to be sure that the timekeepers are sitting where the candidates will see them. Last night's forum, the timekeepers were not in the center. They were rather far to the left. And so I made a point of noting that to the candidates, that is where the timekeepers are. And if you need to keep an eye, half an eye on the timekeepers to make sure that the candidates are keeping an eye on the timekeepers. And if a candidate persists in running over, you know, if they're at the end of their statement, if they just have another sentence, you can generally tell and you let them finish. But if they keep going, then well, I would say thank you and the next person. If they still don't respond, thank you, your time is up. I don't think I would say excuse me sounds like it could come off as excuse me. But if you can say excuse me politely, then you can say excuse me. But yeah, you need to interrupt the candidate so that nobody hogs the floor. Um, use your judgment when screening questions. This is probably the number one thing that you do as a moderator, is that the questions have been screened and handed to you, but then you are making decisions about which questions to ask, what order you're going to ask them in, how exactly you're going to read them, because they're written out to me, but I don't necessarily read them the way that they're written. I might reverse the order of the sentences. I might give an explanation up front. So you have the final say in how the question is presented. Sometimes I will be handed a cluster of cards with the same topic on it. And I might combine two of the questions into one. I might combine the gist of them. So these are all editing things that I do. When I am given the questions, and you're given questions as they come in. So throughout the forum, you'll continue to receive questions. I will lay them out on the podium by topic area. So I might have some on education, I might have some on environment, some on budget, whatever the forum is about. I will sort the questions out by general topic area. And I will then try to make sure that I get at least one question from each of the main topic areas so that the forum is well-rounded and presents a wide array of questions. You want your candidates to be fully knowledgeable about the job that they are seeking. And so if they're running for mayor, there is a lot that the mayor needs to know and handle in the city. And so you want your questions to help flesh out the range of the job and the knowledge that the candidate has. Um, I will sometimes the answers that the candidates are giving to a question will lead to another question. Like they mention something else in their answer. That is another question that I have. And so sometimes instead of going to another topic area, I will pull a question um, because it pertains to what they were just saying. So that there's a logical flow to the conversation. Um, I will also, the first question I ask for the evening will generally be an easier question. I will try to pull up an easy one just to get them warmed up, get them comfortable with the microphone and the fact that they're answering questions and speaking to a crowd. Depending on who the candidate is, this might be a really daunting prospect. Boy, and one time I had a brand new candidate, and she was young, and she was the first person to speak. And she was so nervous. So I definitely gave an easier question, and I made eye contact with her and tried to be encouraging to her. And she was not elected, but she did tell me after the forum, she thanked me for helping her to feel more confident in what she was doing. Um, the we ask all questions go to everybody. Um, I have tried to ask individual questions for just one candidate, and boy, all of the other candidates really want to answer. I have been very unsuccessful at getting people to not answer other people's questions. And so I generally only do questions that go to everybody. We will have a forum coming up that'll just be two candidates. They're the finalists from the primary. And we have a pointed question for one of the candidates. And so I have asked for better data to back up that pointed question, and that we also need to have a pointed question for the other candidate so that they're each getting their own individual pointed question. And finally, you're free to not ask a question that you think is inappropriate, even if multiple people think it is. If you really feel that it's a gotcha question or it's unfair or you don't have the data to back up the question, then maybe you shouldn't ask it. I will say that I was at one forum where Donna Lean, of blessed memory, um, had a candidate who there were accusations, public accusations that were not going away. And she said to the candidate, would you like to take this opportunity to set the record straight regarding these accusations? Which I thought was a very good way of presenting the problem. And the candidate was thankful for the opportunity and did lay out the truth, at least his truth. And so I thought that was a good way to handle a difficult accusation. You can go to the the toolkit for advice on how to phrase an unbiased question. It's in the Vote 411 section where we have information about formulating questions for the online voter guide, but it also serves for at the candidate forum for the moderators. Never, never, never offer your own opinion. Again, you are only, as the moderator, you are the framework, the structure. You have no opinions. You just have rules and structure. You can say thank you. I say thank you a lot. I try to say thank you after each person finishes their question and to say the name of the next candidate, just as a way of kind of separating each individual. But yeah, so I say thank you a lot. But you will never, never say that something was a good point or that someone might disagree with that answer. I suspect I have an eyebrow that might go up from time to time, but I'm hoping that it's not visible. Be fair to the panelists. Always be fair to the panelists. Again, the goal of the evening is to let the candidates be known to the voters, or to let if it's an information forum, then you want the information to be presented to the public. So you always want to be fair to the panelists. What I will do in setting up my forum, we draw lots. The candidates draw lots as they come in for who's first, who's second, who's third, and we have them then sit at the table in that order. So they're not in alphabetical order or not in the order that they choose and they get there first, like musical chairs. It is they sit in the order by which the lot is drawn, and that is the order in which they speak. So opening statements are candidates one through whatever. Closing statements are candidates whatever through one. Reverse order. I also, when I'm asking questions, because it is more challenging perhaps to be the first to answer a question, unless it's something you're really up on. You don't have time to formulate your answer. And it's also tough to be last to answer. If you've got 5 candidates and 4 people have already answered and you want to come up with something that they haven't all already said. So the order that you're answering the question in is a challenge in itself. And so what I do to try to share that challenge evenly is the first question goes to the first candidate and then down the line. The second question, I start with the second candidate and down the line and finishing with the first candidate. The third question starts with the third candidate and down and back to the front of the table, so that each person gets to answer first, each person gets to answer last, and they know where they are in the order, hopefully. The challenge in that is for me to maintain the order in my head. And I warn the candidates that I invariably get messed up about halfway through. I will just blank out on where we are in the order. And when I do, please just let me know. Please just speak up, because I don't do it intentionally. Now, what I've done the last 2 forums, which actually worked very successfully, was I have a list of their names. I always have a paper with their names in order. And I put a tick mark next to their name when they're the first to answer. And so I can glance up and see, okay, so the first 3 candidates have answered first. So this one goes to the 4th candidate. And I have found that the tick marks worked really well, as long as I remember to make them, but I seem to remember so far. In an issues forum, we have one coming up for our charter updates. And we will have pro and con speakers on the charter. So we will have a speaker who will present all of the information on the charter on the charter issue and how they arrived at these decisions and what the changes would mean to city governance. And we have someone from City Council who will speak about City Council's role in approving these issues to go on the ballot and what City Council talked about. And then we have a pro speaker and a con speaker who served on the Charter Review Commission. And we will take questions. So the person presenting the information will go first. The person from City Council will go second. And then I will go to the person who is pro, and then I will go to the person who is con. And I'm doing that in part because the con speaker has already said that he doesn't have very much to say. And the con is usually responding to the pro. If you think of a court case, you have the attorney for the prosecution goes first, and they present why this is a good thing to go forward. And then you have the attorney for the defense who is saying, no, this is not fair, this is not right. And so that's how we will order this. And then I will take questions. And the questions will probably go to whomever is most able or most appropriate to reply. Like if it's a technical question about the current charter and what the changes mean legally, then that would go to the expert. If it's about city council, because there are accusations being made against council at this point, then that would go to the representative of council. In a public policy or educational forum, questions generally go to the panelist who has the most knowledge on that area of the question. You are in charge. That is the main thing to remember. You, as the moderator, are in charge of the room. You ensure decorum and you ensure a smooth flow to the evening. If things are getting a little rocky, which they do sometimes, feelings can run high. You can say, we realize that many of you have strong feelings on these issues, but we are here to learn. So please let the people speak so we can learn what they are saying. We realize we're not able to get to all of your questions. Feel free to speak to the candidates after the forum. That is the number one complaint that I get from people, is that I did not ask their question. And they are just very, very miffed that I did not ask their question. And you can suggest to them that they ask the candidate directly afterward. But, they wanted that question that they worked hard on to be read to all of the people in the city. And talking privately to the candidate doesn't get them that. And so I understand that they're angry. Last night, I only had a handful of questions. I had 3 or 4 questions left at the end. And so I did say that I had not been able to get to those, and I read off the topics of the remaining questions. And I didn't get any complaints, but it was a smaller forum. Anyhow, yeah, that you'll get complaints on that. In an extreme case of uncontrolled candidate or audience behavior, you can call a halt. And you can ultimately end the forum if things are truly out of control. I think that would be very sad. I would hope that that doesn't happen. But these are contentious times. Well, there was a famous forum from many years ago, also with Donalene of blessed memory, in which a candidate arrived late. And instead of going to her seat at the table, she went to the table and picked up a microphone and started pacing back and forth in front of the table with the microphone, speaking, talking about why she should be elected. And she ordered the sign language interpreters to sit down because nobody was paying any attention to them. And she was really quite out of control. And Donalene tried to cut her off. And it was difficult. And Donalene finally gavelled her. I have a gavel. I have only used it once, but a gavel can be a useful tool, in part for giving you the reminder message that you're in charge. And because if the person is loud and not stopping, a gavel on a podium is louder and just really annoying. So If that were to happen in my case, I would, and I had to gavel the person down. She then left. She put the microphone back down and she left. And I would thank her by name for coming to the forum so that everybody knew which candidate that was who just disrupted the forum. Um, I also checked, we are now having professional recording done of these forums. And the person last night said that yes, he can turn off an individual microphone. If I signal him, he would turn off that person's microphone. Um, so you need to be prepared to rein in control. We also had a forum in which I was genuinely concerned that somebody was going to come to the forum to disrupt it, whose sole intention was to disrupt it. And this is a person who has been highly unpredictable and violent, at least verbally violent. And if they showed up, I was concerned for the safety of everybody. And so we made the unusual decision to hire in a police officer just to be present. And I explained to the officer that that person was allowed to come in because they were a resident of the city. But if they created a disturbance that I could not control, I would attempt to control it and get the person to either be quiet or to leave. But if I could not, I would want the police officer to help. And he understood. And thankfully, that person, in fact, did not show up. And one of the people who was attending the forum actually made a donation to cover the cost of the police officer because they thought it was also a very good idea to have the police officer present. So, these are, you need to be aware of the possibilities, but assume the best. Go for the best because people are, by and large, really well-intentioned. Before the forum begins, you might want to know if any media representatives are in the room or any persons likely to cause a disturbance. Media, I don't consider to be a disturbance. I kind of assume they will be there, but reporters, we've always had a reporter in the room, although now I suspect they watch it on the live stream and don't bother with being in the room. But we welcome the publicity of the event. Now, I heard that one candidate in another city brought their own film crew who proceeded to set up front and center in the room to get the best possible film coverage. And so the moderator and the person who was running the evening, hopefully they're not one and the same, had to move the film crew to the back of the room and to remind them of rules of being quiet and you can't interrupt with questions and you can't move around the room. You need to stay put. But there was another forum where the people at the door would not let the media in, and so they had to take pictures through the glass door. I would let the media in unless you think that they're going to be a disruptor. But generally, we want the public to be informed about the issues and the candidates, and the media helps with that. Oh, if technical issues arise, be prepared with a common sense approach to ensure fairness. Gentle humor and courtesy can help. I will say that, well, last night there were no issues with the microphones, which might be a first. It seems like there is always an issue with the microphone. Although the audio person last night told me that the issue the week before was that somebody had turned off the microphone, like they were done speaking and they turned it off. And the person they handed it to then didn't know that it was turned off. And instead of, I did not intervene. I'm used to microphones not working. And so, last night we had three microphones for 6 candidates. It is rather common for candidates to share the microphone. But the issue a week ago was we had 5 candidates and 2 microphones that were working. And the third candidate repeatedly passed the microphone to the fourth candidate, even though the fourth candidate had a microphone. And so I finally had to take a small break in the progress and ask the third candidate to please pass the microphone back to the right again. Don't keep passing it to the left. And you three will share, and you two will share, and we'll all get along. Um, it seemed like they could have worked that out, but they weren't. The other thing I have seen is with a lack of microphone, the moderator passed her microphone to a candidate. And I would urge you to never give up your microphone. You need your microphone. Hey, I mean, so she would be ready to ask the next question, and she didn't have a microphone. She would have to get it back from the candidate because he never thought to pass it back to her. And so you really don't want to give up your microphone if you do not have to. And another thing, in terms of you maintaining control of the space, I always want my podium to be slightly in front of the candidates and angled so I can look back and see the candidates and make eye contact if necessary. So I always want my podium to be slightly ahead. At this forum where we had 350 people, some of the guests asked me to move the podium back because I was blocking their view of the candidates. And I said, no, I couldn't do that because it is more important that I maintain control of the space. And so I do not move my podium. I do not give up my microphone. And, having said that, yeah. I also, we have disagreements in forums about whether the candidates can come to the podium to make their opening and closing statements. And I ended up doing that at the big forum because the room was so packed and it was so hard to hear. But I also had all my papers laid out, and it's during the opening statements that I really begin to organize the questions. And so I couldn't do that. And so I was less prepared. And the papers that were there got shuffled some by the candidates. So I regretted that decision. I should have insisted that no, you can stand up at your place at the table, which is what I did last night. Again, you are in control. And yeah, it would be nice to come use the podium, but if that puts you at a disadvantage for running the rest of the evening, they can stand up at their chair with a microphone. At the end, you want to thank the candidates or the panelists, thank the audience for being the part of the democracy. You thank your volunteers for coming out and helping. Remind everybody that the league is nonpartisan. Note that a recording will be on the YouTube channel. Remind people that clips may not be posted, and promote Vote 411 and encourage people to join the league if appropriate. Judicial candidate forums. The main thing about judicial candidates is that they cannot, or should not, express views on policy or political matters. They should never weigh in on a legal matter that might come before them in the future as a judge. And so the questions cannot be about specific issues. Instead, it gives the public a chance to evaluate the candidate's qualifications, their judicial temperament, and their approach to judging. It is better for a judicial forum that the moderator be an attorney. We do have a fair number of attorneys who are league members, or it can be an outside attorney. There is a sample script for judicial candidate forums that is with the toolkit. I believe that's with the LWV Ohio toolkit. More resources, because there's always more resources. League of Women Voters of Ohio has resources, including a toolkit for forums on bonds and levies and guidance for judicial candidate forums. I was right. And you can find that at the lwvohio.org/leader corner toolkits resources link. And the LWV Greater Cleveland Google Drive, which is only accessible to chapter chairs and board members, has additional resources on virtual forums, meet and greets, which is where you're not having a question and answer forum per se. The candidates are available and can talk to the public. And judicial candidate forums are also there. So your chapter chair or a Greater Cleveland board member can access those materials for you if you need them. The case for women is not that they are inherently better or more moral. It is that they are half of humanity and should have the same opportunities and be judged by the same standards as the other half. It's a radical notion. Thank you very much for taking moderator training. I hope you have a long and interesting life as a moderator. Take care. Bye-bye.